All right. So the topic of this episode is the problem with chasing. It's kind of what's surfacing for me. And the way that this topic came up is I feel, or have you ever felt like you're on the precipice of like something big, like great things are on the horizon for you and you're really excited because all of your hard work is finally starting to pay off. And well, for me, for anybody that's known me, I really feel like I'm about to experience some like massive career growth because I've been, putting in the work to grow professionally, right? So over the years, I've been taking the lead on some consulting projects. I've been, playing around and experimenting with video creation, production, and graphic design, as well as speaking publicly and in front of a camera. Thank you, Pivotal Moments. But all of this, has resulted in people trying to connect with me on LinkedIn, request more meetings, event collaborations, and freelance projects. And so the other night, I was just kind of sitting there trying to process what that felt like for me mentally and emotionally, because I just felt like an array of emotions. And so I turned to Google, the God of all things. And so
all praise Google.
And so when I did this research, I just kind of typed in, how to mentally prepare for growth. And everything that came back, and I do mean absolutely everything that came back, were topics and resources, titled with things like how to increase your career success, how to ensure that you're successful, how to know if you're successful. And as I'm just looking at the screen blankly, I kind of just realized that all of these appear to kind of just like insinuate that I'm not there, that I'll never be there, that I'm going to be chasing success, chasing happiness, chasing whatever it is. And I was like, well, what if you're there? What if you're there? What does that feel like? How do you experience it in that moment? So I just felt like we needed to kind of just talk about, you can't really chase.
You can't really chase. And I think chasing and happiness is just something that our saboteurs set us up for, of constantly setting a goal and then reaching the goal and getting there and being like, oh, that's it.
Yeah, it kind of falls flat, right?
It totally falls flat. But I love what you were doing, though, because you were trying to say, hey, how do I experience this right now? And you're trying to do what I think a lot of people do, which is find resources and tools to help them be in the moment. And the funny thing is that, it may not be an intellectual answer. It really is in your body. Like, what does it feel like to be here in this moment and getting into, your own sensations and seeing where that joy lies.
Well, this is definitely different than what I've done before, because usually I'll already just do, put the next benchmark out there and I'll try to work for that. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the growth that I'm working on both in counseling and here on the pod, where I'm like, I'm feeling an array of emotions. And my husband, I don't think, could really understand. He's like, what do you mean? Like, aren't you just like proud of yourself? But it's like, okay, I'm happy because, the sweat equity and sleepless nights that I've done are starting to pay off. I'm excited because I'm, what new opportunities lie ahead that maybe I'm not aware of currently. I'm proud because, my work is finally being welcomed and appreciated by colleagues and clients. I'm sad because it's a little bittersweet when you reach a goal and, that's going to kind of modify your journey a little bit. You're scared because as you grow, will you be able to keep up with demand? How will this impact other aspects of my life? Am I prepared for this? And then you have the saboteur, the doubt that kind of surfaces for me. It's like, will my quality of work suffer? How do I deserve this type of recognition? Am I qualified to even be here? So it's just an array of emotions. And yet I have not found any resources that just talk about being.
Mm-hmm. So. Yeah, because being is, I don't want to say the key, but it's actually experiencing all of these things. Like, okay, well, what's it like to be proud? What's it like to, have a little bit of sadness of, hey, maybe this is going a different way, or even allowing for the possibility of this is going to be different than what I imagined. And it might even be better than what I imagined. What's that like? And so I feel like everything that you were talking about, especially on the, am I going to be able to handle this? Am I going to be able to do those things? What keeps popping up is that fear of success. Mm-hmm. And, more people are afraid of being successful than they are of actually failing. But that fear is still holding them back from actually experiencing and doing the things that they want to do.
Well, and I'm just proud of myself that I haven't set my next benchmark yet because I don't know what that is. But let's talk about what happens when we do start to set benchmarks before we've even had a chance to process what that means.
Well, not even process. It's not the processing of the event. It's actually experiencing the event.
Mm-hmm. Feeling it.
Yeah, feeling the event. Because I think what happens is it's this lie that our brains tell us of, hey, I'll be happy when. I'll be happy when this project is over. I'll be happy when I make 6 figures. I'll be happy when I'm out of debt. And it's 2 lies. And I was diving in on this in positive intelligence. And I think I might have talked about it before because I'm just obsessed with this stuff. But the I'll be happy when is 2 lies. The first lie is that you can't be presently happy. You can't be happy right now. You can only be happy in the future. Happiness is a future event that is reserved for the future and for you to earn by doing some sort of thing. Okay. That's bullshit. You can absolutely be happy in the present. The second part of that lie is that it will actually come true once you get there, where it's like, oh yeah, you reached the goal and you can actually be happy, because your brain's actually not going to let you do that. You're going to get there. Maybe it'll let you celebrate for a little bit. You're like, wow, I made it. And then it's going to be like, well, what's next? And then we set that next benchmark, right? So you're constantly chasing that happiness goalpost because you keep moving it. Oh, well, 10 more pounds. Maybe not this house, the next house, not this job, the next promotion, the next thing. And it just keeps us going. And it's part of this other self-perpetuating lie of, hey, I can only be happy if I'm producing or doing things. And again, those are things that are not true. You can absolutely be happy right now. It's just not something that in our society we really allow for. So it may not be an individual issue. And this is something we were talking about before. It could be, hey, we live in a society that's, constantly reinforcing you're only as good as your last project. You're only as good as your last win.
Your last social media post,
Right, exactly. How many likes did that get? Like all of those things kind of play into it. And, we're here to let you know that you don't have to do that. You can absolutely be happy right now and really be conscious of, am I moving that benchmark forward for myself? And also, am I doing it for others? So I know we talked about this, you've had several friends recently pop out babies. And one of the things that happens when people have kids is instead of letting them enjoy the fact that they just had a baby right now, what's the question that comes?
When's your next baby?
Yeah. When are you having your next baby? How many more are you having? What are you doing? This and that. And it's one of those things where we may do it to other people. And so I try very hard not to do that to other people and just celebrate. Wow. Like that's so amazing. Congratulations. How does it feel? What are you doing to celebrate? Like those are the things I'm trying to say. I'm not trying to say, oh, that's so amazing. When are you going to buy your next house? Oh, okay, you're going to do this. Like my little brother just had, him and his wife just had a baby. And I have not asked that question of, are you going to have another baby? Or when are you going to have another baby? Like I can hear it like in my head popping up like, oh, it's a natural, like normal conversation piece thing to have. It's like, enjoy your relationship right now. Enjoy this experience of you guys being new parents, moving into your new house. Like they've got all kinds of cool stuff going on in their lives. I'm so happy for them. But letting them enjoy the now as opposed to, oh, okay, well, oh, this is great, but when are you going to do this other thing? Because we do that to people all the time. And you know what it does? It sucks the joy out of the moment.
It absolutely does. I love that you're talking about experiencing the now, experiencing the moment, because it is all about experiencing the now. And I think oftentimes we confuse happiness with external things. We talked about job, we talked about money, we talked about babies, houses. But according to Sean Anker, I love him, absolutely love him. He is the author of The Happiness Advantage, as well as a psychologist. And he talks about that if scientists know everything about your external world, they can only predict about 10% of your long-term happiness. And the remaining 90% of your long-term happiness is actually determined by you and the way that you process what's going on in the world around you. So that's a way for those like myself who like control, a way to be able to think about, okay, the majority of how I might experience happiness is within my control. How I interact with the world, how I'm processing information. Am I continuously looking at things in a deficit mindset, or am I looking to see what's positive and experiencing things in the now?
Yeah. And I think that that's a great way of just looking at the fact that happiness isn't the external. It's in the internal. It's in how you look at everything. And, as I'm going through certification, and I added another course on top of certification because
why not?
Because I don't have a hyperachiever issue or anything. But one of the things that we're working on right now is the gifts of the sage. And so your sage is that higher self, inner wisdom part of you. And one of the ways that the sage looks at the world is by seeing every circumstance as having a gift or an opportunity in it, and can turn everything into it. So part of what we're doing is we're looking at a bad, quote unquote, bad experience that we had, and we are visualizing it and reimagining it in what would have been the gift out of this. And so people are talking about like the gifts that they've gotten from cancer, the gifts that they've gotten from a breakup. I've certainly turned my, experience with the firm that shall not be named into a gift. Like things where you're finding, hey, there's a gift and opportunity here. Now, sometimes there might be some space. You may not immediately be able to look at the fact that somebody crashed into your car. In that day, you're probably not gonna be able to see the gift. Giving it a little bit of time and space, and giving yourself time to actually feel that really sucked.
That really resonates with me because Siria and I bumped into a dear friend of ours yesterday when we were out at coffee, and she is a breast cancer survivor, and she had talked about how some of the things that she's learned during cancer, and she's like, it's the power of saying no. She's like, I used to be a people pleaser, and she's like, that has really subsided, after cancer, because she's like, I realized I needed to put myself first. Mm-hmm. And I was like, wow, what a great takeaway, great opportunity that was learned from such a terrible event or experience. Right.
And so I think that with that, with the Sean Anker you were talking about, right? So there was a TED Talk that you sent me to. I went ahead and I did my homework. I actually went and I watched it. But he talks about Christopher Reeve, right? Like Christopher Reeve was on top of the world, and he has, he falls off a horse and becomes a quadriplegic, and then goes on to found, all of this research on spinal cord injuries. And, when was asked at some point, would you, do you regret this accident? He's like, no, because this is where I found my purpose. And really that is the sage. That is that perspective of being able to say, hey, here is something that everybody will say, man, this is objectively bad. And yet be able to come out of it, and your experiences of is actually, this was a good thing. And that's kind of one of the things that I was thinking about with like my trauma, where we both have traumas. Everybody has trauma. If you're listening to this, you probably have trauma. Okay.
No one's coming unscathed.
No one is coming totally unscathed, right? You're going to have something. It's just to the degree of it. And when you look at it, it's like, would I change the past? No, like I don't think I could, because all of that informed and got me to where I'm at right now.
Well, I think you had mentioned before, you had asked me the question on the pod, which is like, do these experiences, am who I am because of them or in spite of them? And I think you said you are who you are because of it.
Yes.
And I think that that's a very powerful distinction to make.
I think so, of just being able to take ownership of it and be willing to see that there are good things in it, because all we have in life are circumstances, and we are the ones who determine whether they are good circumstances or bad circumstances. Something that could be really good, right? You win the lottery, could quickly turn into a curse for you, because all these things that happen, like a lot of lottery winners, lose the majority of their money. People who come into an inheritance, into a large sum of money, will spend it. I think the last time I looked at it, I think it was something like 70 days or so. I'm like, 2.5 months, like you spent all of the money that you came into. And this is regardless of whether it was a $15,000 or 1.5 million. Like it does not matter. People will do that. But I think that's brings me to my other point, which is you are going to adapt to your circumstances. And so you have to recognize that is something that is happening. So it's kind of like when you're creating a new habit, right? If you start taking something from a treat and it becomes a habit, say a nitro coffee habit, where the first time it was delicious and now it's a habit and it's not exactly the same anymore. My body and brain have adapted to it. They've adapted to this new reality, and it's actually called hedonic adaptation. So you get used to the good thing that you already have, and so now you're comparing it to, oh well, now I don't have this other thing, and that's where comparison definitely becomes the thief of joy. But what happens is you adapt, and now you're in this new standard, and so that's how you'll see people who are like, oh my god, I don't make enough money, and they're making 6 figures, and you're just like, bro, like, what do you mean you're not making enough money? Like,
I'll take your cash.
Yeah.
I think coming back to taking control, because it is within our control. Like, again, 90% of our happiness is determined by how we interact with the world. And that comes back down to neuroscience, which Siddhi and I both love. We both love neuroscience, positive psychology, just anything about how the brain works. And in the video I sent you, I wonder which one I sent you now, the Shaw Acre video, he's talking about when you have the mentality that if I work hard, then I'll be successful. And if I'm more successful, then I'll be happy. And he says that that thinking is backwards for 2 reasons. If every time your brain experiences a success, you just change the goalpost. And every time that you change the goalpost, if your happiness is tied to the other side of that goalpost, your brain will never get there. And that really resonated with me, because that's why I feel like this moment where I'm just kind of pausing before I set my next goalpost was so different than I normally did or would normally do, because I would automatically tie my next, happiness, my next benchmark to something else. And so I would never experience the pride, the accomplishment, the achievement, the happiness, the good things, I would just push it off to the side.
Yeah. And what you're talking about is enjoying the process. I think that's the big difference between us, being able to separate from the outcome. If you're enjoying the process, if you are enjoying what you're doing in the moment, then you are actually living into your joy and happiness, as opposed to, I could only be happy when this is done, and getting to that moment. And I think we've all experienced, okay, you're done with a big project, you get that sigh of relief, but you may not necessarily feel happiness, maybe for a little bit. But really that goal setting is, when he was talking about it, and I realized I might have got my videos confused. It might have been Shirzad Shamin talking about it in my course, the Christopher Reeves example. So my bad.
It's still
the same example. Y'all know who he is. And if you don't know, you might not be old enough for this podcast, but anyways, really, when I was thinking about Sean Akers' video, what he was talking about, and he didn't quite articulate, is something that we talk about in coaching, which is the be, do, have model. So in society, we're taught you have to do, you do, have, be, right? So if you do the thing, then you're going to get the result, and then you're going to be happy. And so that we have it all backwards. And so really, in coaching, what we try to do is, no, you want to be in the be, do, have model, because you start with your place of being. How do you want to be in this moment? I want to be happy. Okay, what action do you need to take in order to continue to be that? And then you will have that result. So we start with the being, focus there, and then you have all the things. So it isn't, I'm a writer when I finish a book. It's, I'm a writer now. And then you continue to write, and then eventually you'll have a finished book.
Absolutely. He touches on it a little bit, but not in that depth. But he also talks about that if we do allow ourselves to feel happiness, pride, achievement, that these positive emotions will flood our system, flood our brain with dopamine, which has 2 positive effects. First, it makes us happier, right? Second, it actually turns on all the learning centers in our brain, thus allowing us to be more creative, improve our mood, improve our outlook, invite new opportunities in that we maybe would have been closed off to. So even just by reframing and being in the moment, and just like practicing this can actually, I love when things can change your brain, kind of coming back to like the habit loop that we've talked about. There's so much that you can do that's within your control to change how your brain operates and interprets things.
Yeah. And if you're tapping into those parts of your brain, you're not tapping into fear, because that system is a different system. You're no longer in your limbic system, in your fight or flight stuff. No, you're not there. You're in your creative space. You're in your opportunity to learn and be more expansive, which is freaking amazing that we can do that. But we have the power to do that if we choose to do that. That's part of the, I want to say, issue that we have, is that we don't realize that we have a choice in the matter. Yeah, there might be some things that happen to us physiologically where, we get headaches, we get migraines, we get things that we're not feeling well. We still have to go through and feel those things, take care of ourselves, whether that's with traditional medicine or something a little bit more alternative. Those are things you still have to deal with, but by and large, you're still making choices. And part of that is I could choose to sit here and be sad and miserable about, the fact that somebody dinged my car. Nobody did, but if they did, that's the
Would
example.
anybody even notice?
I don't think anybody would. Thank you. I don't think any of you guys would care. You guys, everybody would be like, thank goodness, go get another car. But even that, right? Like, I'll be happier when I have a new car. I might be safer. I don't think I'll be happier. There's slightly different things, but we have the power to choose how we're thinking about things in the moment. And really just knowing, hey, if we're chasing and you feel like you're in a chasing mood, you got to bring yourself back to the present.
Absolutely. I think by changing our formula for how we experience happiness and success, we basically change the way that they affect, or our experiences, how we experience our reality. So just even taking that small pause before setting my next benchmark has allowed me to kind of change the formula for how I experience happiness and success, and allowed myself to feel all the emotions, which I think, I don't know, I feel a sense of pride that I don't think that I normally, or achievement that I don't think I normally would have felt otherwise. And I'm excited about setting the next goalpost, but just enjoying being where I'm at right now.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, it's more of an aim, right? You're not tying your happiness
and not
to
tying
that
my worth. I think that that's another big thing too, right? Not tying my worth to the next goalpost, the next benchmark.
Right. Not tying it to something external. Like you're already worthy. You can be happy now. Like you can be proud of yourself now for this time and place, not tying it to the future. And I think one of the things that I'm doing right now is I'm just not necessarily setting another goal. There are other things that are happening, which are exciting. Like, I'll be certified later this year. That's exciting, but I'm not tying my happiness to, I'll be happy when I'm a CPCC. No, like, it'll be cool. I'll enjoy that moment of that accomplishment, especially since I have lots of written evidence beforehand of, should I do this? Should I not? And I'm like, oh, I'm almost done. But that's just a different space. And the same thing with, I don't have a goal of, I just don't have those goals right now like I did before. And
doesn't it allow you to just be in the space? Because I know that your word for this year was just to be.
Yeah, well, it's, being present and the acceptance part of it. And I think what it's doing for me, it's just allowing me to enjoy the moments. And I'll give you this example because it was pretty profound for me recently. So I received 2 different checks, literally days apart. The first check was for a very large sum of money for a referral fee. And I was like, damn, like I really wanted to see it. And so I made arrangements. I did all of that because I was like, wow, like I want to see my name on this check. So I did that. And then I went and I deposited it the next day. Literally the day after I deposited it, I got another check, and it was for a fraction, like such a small amount. Like, I don't even think it would cover anybody's rent at this point. Like it was definitely not covering major things, but the amount of pride that I felt, because this check is from my coaching work and for being a coach in the coaching sphere with the lawyer group that I'm involved in, it made me cry. I cried over, like, I've never been so proud to earn something in my entire life. And I've been working since I was 15 years old. But that moment and just realizing, wow, like this is a real possibility. Me being paid, a steady income in coaching, where it hasn't replaced my lawyer salary by any means, but that's not even the point. And it was just enjoying that moment instead of I'll be happy in my coaching world when I've replaced my lawyer salary.
I also think part of the reason why, at least for me, why I have not maybe given time for me to feel the good things, it's kind of like when you are writing your resume. Like, you don't want to write like the good things you've done. It just seems like you're boasting, and I think at least the way that I felt was, by celebrating my accomplishments, it seems like I was just like touting myself, or I was just like pumping myself up. It was almost seemed selfish or arrogant for me to do. So I'm like, well, we'll just brush those underneath the rug. Like, yeah, I can do those things, but like, let's not put it on display.
Well, and that's definitely part of social conditioning that we have, right? Of like, well, you don't want to be too boastful.
Don't be a showboat.
Yeah. Nobody likes a show off. That's all of that bullshit that we have. But what came to mind when you were talking about is the foreboding joy that Brene Brown talks about, where we are like, oh my gosh, I can't be so happy right now because if I do, somebody's going to drown. Something's going to happen that is going to take me out of this joy. And I think a big part of that is knowing that's just life. You are going to be in moments of joy. We're not meant to be in joy, happiness, high all the time. We are going to go down, but we are meant to have more of a stable range of where we're at, as opposed to constantly
those
looking like
valleys.
You don't want to look like a heart monitor. You want it to look more like a wave where you're having the ups and downs, but so that you can actually really enjoy them, because the quicker you're able to come out of the down parts, the more time you actually will spend in your happiness and joy.
Oh, I love that. What tips do you have to help people either stop chasing, maybe reframe their formula for happiness?
Wow, that's a tall order. Here's what I can say. Definitely look for, what's the gift here? Every circumstance is going to have a gift. It might take you a moment to be able to find it, but like, what's the gift here? What's the opportunity? And this could be from having a fight with somebody. What can you appreciate? And so this is the ally, the appreciator that comes out. That's one that can help you be there. The other thing with not chasing happiness is to be in the moment and to be grateful for what you have right now, which brings me to my gratitude journal I made a gratitude journal, guys. I'm so excited.
It's really cute.
That crazy notebook lady on TikTok showed me how to do it on her stuff, so I have to tag her on it, but I'll post it in the show notes as well so you guys can see it. But practicing gratitude is one of the things that keeps you in the present and keeps you from dwelling on the negative things. Because even in a really shitty day, I'm going to find things to be grateful for, and I'm going to find things to acknowledge myself for, of, okay, well, I brushed my hair. Like, if it's one of those days, right, where you're just not feeling a whole lot of stuff, but really bringing yourself back to the present, to your senses in your body, is going to help you realize, hey, I can be happy right now, as opposed to I'll be happy tomorrow.
I do like the gratitude journal exercise. And I know that you are also a big fan of journaling. And so one thing that I'd like to, ask or invite people, our listeners, to try is journaling, but specifically journaling about I'm going to bring some appreciative inquiry in here, specifically journaling about a positive experience that you had within the past 24 hours. And by journaling about it, you're allowing your brain to relive that moment, and it again will flood your body with dopamine. Another tip that I would offer would be exercise. I know I bitch about exercising on here, but I have to tell you, with the high levels of stress that I have with my job, even that momentary hour at the gym, or even just walking my dog for 30 minutes, is just such a great reset for my body. And it also kind of just tells my body that my behavior matters. And so just to get out there, just to hit that reset button. Another thing that actually Sean Aker actually suggested was random acts of kindness. And he gave the example of just send a quick email of appreciation to someone within your social network, and do that for 21 days. No more than 2 minutes for each thing. I mean, it doesn't take much to build this new neural pathway. It just takes consistency.
I did something like that with thank you cards. I made it a challenge for myself for a year. This was a couple years ago, and
I was gonna say I didn't get no thank you card, but
this was a while ago. I'm pretty sure you were on the list. But what I did was I got a bunch of thank you cards, and after a lunch or an event, and for a year my goal was to send basically one out a week. I did that, and you know what? It was so much fun to do, to one, write, and two, to send out. And then somebody inevitably, like the amount of times that I had people being like, I was having such a shitty day and then I got your thank you card, like completely warmed my heart, because it was, everything I wrote was true. And then the funny thing is to then later see the cards on display in different people's like offices. I saw it in Jen's office, one of our friends, and I was like, oh, like that warmed my heart again. And just knowing, hey, you know what, I brought somebody enough joy that they wanted to, you know, be able to look back on this, because you're right, you can always access that memory again and that appreciation, and that will bring you to a happy place.
That's it for this episode. Find us on Instagram at Pivotal Moments HQ for all the behind the scenes and sister-like banter you know and love. We want to thank our producer and music director, Ron Johnson. This has been an Astronomicus DMR and Pug Productions podcast.